Don't worry, Chloe. I'll find a way. Ethan Black whispered into his cheap phone, though he wasn't entirely sure what that way would be. Amidst the thick scent of gasoline and the blaring horns of a Chicago afternoon, his promise sounded fragile. He stood there, a 17-year-old. His shirt was meticulously ironed, but his jeans were faded with years of wear. His hand gripped a college fair brochure, something he believed was his only ticket out of his current life. In his pocket, he had only $38, a meager sum compared to his sister's dreams and the invisible burdens weighing on his shoulders. With a determined squeeze of his shoulder, Ethan quickened his pace toward the subway station. He had no idea that the real opportunity wasn't in the glittering booths of the fair, but waiting for him right down those old dim steps. The station's flickering fluorescent lights swallowed Ethan as he descended. The air was damp and cold, carrying the rumble of an approaching train. The rushing crowd streamed past like an indifferent river, skillfully parting to navigate around an obstacle huddled on the steps, then merging again, continuing its flow without pause. It was a middle-aged woman, unconscious in a gray business suit. Her leather briefcase lay overturned beside her, papers scattered. Ethan froze. The fair. Time. Chloe. But the image of his nurse mother after an exhausting night shift flashed in his mind. He couldn't just walk away. Against the current of the crowd, ignoring the irritated glances, he knelt beside the woman. "Ma'am, are you okay?" He gently shook her shoulder. No response. Without hesitation, Ethan pulled out his phone and dialed 911. Just as he connected to the dispatcher, the woman moaned softly and opened her eyes, startled. "No! Don't call for help!" she gasped, her voice weak but firm. She tried to sit up, leaning on the handrail. I have a meeting. I can't miss it." Ethan, flustered, quickly hung up. "But ma'am, you don't look well at all. You need to go to a hospital." "Please, young man," she pleaded, her eyes urgent. "It determines the future of so many people." The desperation in her voice made Ethan falter. He looked at his brochure, then back at her. The future. Everyone was fighting for it. He took a deep breath. "So, should I call you a taxi then?" The woman nodded eagerly, grateful. Ethan carefully helped her up, hailed a taxi, and settled her in the back seat. He opened his wallet, pulled out almost all the money he had, $35, and handed it to the driver. "Just go, sir," he said, then turned to the woman. "I'll go with you." The car pulled away, leaving behind the college fair gates and the distant promise of a future Ethan had just abandoned. Inside the taxi, the silence was stifling, broken only by the dry ticking of the fare meter. Ethan sat upright, hands on his knees, watching the old Chicago buildings flash by outside the window. He was trying not to think about the college fair, about the university booths he had now missed. The woman beside him had straightened up, trying to compose herself. After a moment, she turned to Ethan, her voice still weak, but more steady. "Thank you so much. I'm Diana. Diana Sterling." "I'm Ethan," he replied politely. "Are you feeling better now, Miss Sterling?" "Much better, thank you," she said, a tired smile fleeting across her lips. She glanced at the expensive watch on her wrist, her expression tensing again. "I'm so sorry to have dragged you into this. It's just, I can't be late." Ethan asked curiously, "Is your meeting really that important?" Diana nodded, her gaze fixed on the distant skyscrapers of downtown. "More important than my life right now," she said, her voice dropping. She pointed to a large design blueprint, crumpled at one corner in her leather briefcase. This is a sustainable community center project. It's valued at $600 million. Ethan gasped, that number far exceeding anything he could imagine. Chloe's tuition, his garage earnings, all were but a speck of dust compared to that colossal sum. $600 million? He stammered. Diana nodded, seriousness etched deep on her face. And if I'm not there to present within 15 minutes. She glanced at her watch again. The investment committee will cancel the entire project. Everything will be over. She paused, then turned to look directly into Ethan's eyes. Her gaze no longer held the detachment of a stranger, but a deep sense of sorrow. It's not just a building, Ethan. It's a place for learning, playing, and living for thousands of teenagers in the toughest neighborhoods of this city. Kids like you will lose their only chance for a safe place, for a better future. Her words sent a jolt down Ethan's spine. He suddenly realized that his action wasn't just helping an unconscious person. Unwittingly, he had staked his small future on a much larger one. The taxi was now carrying not just a renowned architect, but also the hopes of thousands of people just like him. The taxi screeched to a halt in front of a magnificent glass and steel skyscraper. Ethan hurriedly paid the remaining fare, almost tossing the last coins into the driver's hand, then helped Diana out of the car. She was still unsteady, her pale face even more apparent under the city's harsh sunlight. "Only 5 minutes left," Diana whispered, almost out of breath as they entered the cold marble lobby. A young woman in a suit, tablet in hand, rushed out to meet them, her face filled with worry. "Miss Sterling! Everyone's waiting! Are you okay? You look." "I'm fine, Brooke," Diana cut her off, trying to stand straight. "Prepare the conference room. Upload the presentation." They were led directly into a luxurious conference room, where a row of stern faces sat around a long wooden table. All eyes turned to Diana and the shabbily dressed teenager beside her. The air was thick with anticipation and skepticism. As the assistant plugged the USB into the projector, Diana staggered and had to lean on the podium to steady herself. She took a deep breath, trying to begin, but could only manage a few coughs. The dizziness had drained all her strength. She looked at Ethan, her eyes reflecting helplessness and despair. Seeing this, Ethan didn't hesitate. He quickly stepped forward, taking the computer mouse. "Ma'am, let me help," he said softly, just loud enough for her to hear. "Just tell me which slide to present." Diana nodded, almost too weak to object. Ethan quickly scrolled through the slides. Complex 3D architectural renderings, dense financial charts filled with numbers. Then he stopped at a slide titled Social Impact, Building the Future from the Community. This slide had only a few brief bullet points and a photo of children playing on a dilapidated street. What is this slide about?" Ethan asked quietly. It's about why we need this project," Diana gasped. "About the kids. About opportunity." Ethan looked at the photo, and he didn't see strange children. He saw Chloe. He saw his neighborhood friends. He saw himself in it. He knew that street. He knew that deprivation. Without waiting for Diana to say more, Ethan turned to face the committee, his heart pounding. "Excuse me, ladies and gentlemen," he began, his voice slightly shaky but clear. "My name is Ethan, Miss Sterling. She's not feeling well. But this slide, I can talk about it." The conference room fell silent. An elderly man on the committee frowned, about to object, but Diana's urgent gaze stopped him. "You see the blueprints, the numbers," Ethan said, pointing to the screen. but I see something else. I live in that neighborhood. I know what it feels like to have nowhere to study because home is too noisy, no safe playground because the streets are full of danger. A community center isn't just bricks and mortar, it's a promise that kids like my sister, like my friends, won't be left behind. He spoke without embellishment, without high-flown business jargon. He spoke only with truth, with the experiences he lived every day. He spoke about how a safe place could keep a child away from gangs, how an after-school class could change grades, and how a basketball court could produce champions. In the corner of the room, Diana Sterling stood, leaning against the wall, watching the teenager she had casually met on the subway steps. And, for the first time that afternoon, she smiled, a smile of relief and astonishment. When Ethan finished, the room remained silent. But this silence was no longer heavy with skepticism. It was filled with contemplation. His genuine words had achieved what perhaps dozens of financial charts could not. They touched the hearts of the investors. After a few exchanged glances, the elderly man at the head of the table stood up and applauded. One by one, the entire committee followed suit. The project was approved. As soon as the conference room door closed, Diana, though still weak, stepped forward and hugged Ethan tightly. "Thank you, Ethan. You saved everything," she said, her voice trembling with emotion. A few days later, fully recovered, Diana met Ethan at a small coffee shop. She pushed a thick envelope across the table toward him. "This is a small token of my gratitude," she said softly. "I don't know how to repay what you did. It was more than saving a project. You saved the dreams of so many people, including mine." Ethan looked at the envelope, feeling the weight of the bills inside. He thought of Chloe's tuition, the stacking bills at home, his mother's old car. This money could solve all those problems, at least for a while. He had always dreamed of a miracle like this. But then he thought of the moment in the conference room. He hadn't helped Diana for money. He had spoken those words from his heart, from his own life. Taking this money, in some way, would diminish his action and make it mundane. He gently pushed the envelope back toward Diana. "I really appreciate it, Miss Sterling. I truly do," Ethan said, his voice sincere and resolute. "But I can't accept it. I didn't do it for the money. I just did what I thought was right." Diana looked at him, her eyes no longer surprised, but filled with deep respect. She had met many people in the business world, people willing to do anything for profit. But the teenager in front of her, who had nothing, possessed something money couldn't buy: integrity. "I understand," she smiled, pulling the envelope back. "But kindness must be repaid, Ethan. If not with money, then in another way." Diana put the envelope away, but she didn't put away her intention. Instead, she took a long, dark blue velvet box from her purse. She opened it reverently, revealing a silver fountain pen, exquisitely designed but sturdy. Under the cafe lights, the pen's lines shimmered with a quiet elegance. "If you won't take the money," Diana said, her voice suddenly deepening, tinged with profound sadness, "then please accept this." She pushed the box toward Ethan. He hesitated, picking up the pen. It was heavier than he expected, feeling substantial and solid in his hand. He gently twisted the barrel and saw two delicate initials engraved near the cap. R.S. "It's beautiful," Ethan said, unsure what to do. "But I can't." "Just take it," Diana interrupted, her gaze distant as if lost in a memory. "It belonged to my son, Ryan Sterling." She paused, taking a deep breath before continuing. "He was a brilliant architecture student, just like me. But unlike me, he didn't dream of flashy skyscrapers. He dreamed of small homes, community libraries, affordable buildings for people like you, Ethan. The pain of loss was clear on her face, but mingled with it was pride. He always believed that architecture wasn't about flaunting wealth, but about serving people. He always said a good design could change a life. This pen is what I gave him when he got into college. She looked directly into Ethan's eyes, and this time he saw the deep connection between the community center project and her personal story. Ryan passed away in an accident a few years ago. Before he could fulfill any of his dreams, she continued, her voice trembling slightly. When I saw you stand up in that meeting, talking about the children, about the community, I didn't just see a kind teenager. I saw Ryan again. You have the same heart, the same desire to help others. She gently placed her hand on Ethan's hand, which held the pen. I'm not giving you a pen, Ethan. I'm entrusting you with a legacy. Use it to write your own future, and who knows, you might help me complete my son's unfinished dream. Ethan gripped the pen tightly. Now, it was no longer an inanimate object. It held a story, a dream, and a belief. It was a fateful gift, heavier than any money and more precious than any opportunity he had ever dared to dream of. The RS pen sat proudly on Ethan's desk, but he had no idea that it was only the tangible item in a series of invisible gifts that Diana was quietly bestowing. He didn't receive a loud phone call notification, nor direct promises. The change came to his family silently, like dawn creeping into a dark room. The first miracle arrived in a thick envelope bearing the logo of the University of California, Berkeley. Ethan thought there must be a mistake. He had missed the fair, never submitted a single application. But when he opened it, the words Ryan Sterling Scholarship for Engineering, Architecture danced before his eyes. Full tuition, accompanied by a short note from the admissions office. Your application was specially recommended by a reputable patron. Ethan looked at the pen on his desk, and he understood. A few days later, Chloe's joyful shouts broke the apartment silence. She bounced up and down, her phone displaying an email from Michigan State University. An anonymous foundation had fully funded her nursing program. Ethan's promise, I'll find a way, had been fulfilled by a woman he had only just met in a way he never could have imagined. The invisible burdens on his mother's shoulders also gradually lifted. A letter from a charity she had never heard of announced a gratitude grant for frontline healthcare workers. The amount wasn't huge, but it was enough for her to cut back on exhausting night shifts, for her to smile more often, for their home to have more warm dinners. Even the old garage where Ethan used to work took on a new life. His boss, a gruff man, happily announced that an investor had decided to inject capital to upgrade the entire facility, but not just for car repairs. A dusty corner of the workshop would soon become a creative space with 3D printers and design tools, a place where kids in the neighborhood could touch their architectural dreams. Ethan didn't need to ask who was behind all this. Diana never admitted it. She only said that it was Ryan's legacy finding its own way to spread. She hadn't given him a paved path. She had given him, his sister, and his entire community the first bricks. And now, the future was an open construction site, waiting for them to build it with their own hands. Almost a decade passed, as quickly as a blink of an eye, enough to transform a worried teenager at a bus stop into a dignified man. Ethan Black now sat in a spacious glass office, overlooking the Chicago skyline. On the silver nameplate prominently placed on his desk were engraved the words, Chief Architect. Sterling Design Labs. The hands that once were smudged with grease at the car garage now glided smoothly over complex designs. And in his hand, always, was the RS fountain pen. It was not just a tool, it was a reminder, a legacy. The office door gently opened, and Diana Sterling walked in, her hair now flecked with more silver, but her smile as warm as ever. She looked at Ethan's unfinished blueprint, a social housing project with green spaces and communal living areas. "Still saving the world, Ethan?" she said, her voice affectionate. Ethan looked up, smiling. "I'm just trying to pay back what I've received." His gaze drifted to a framed photo on his desk. In the picture was a radiant young woman in a blue nurse's uniform, standing in front of the Northwestern Memorial Hospital entrance. Chloe. She had not only excelled in her nursing program at Michigan State University, but had chosen to work at one of the city's frontline hospitals, serving many of its most disadvantaged patients. Every day, she was doing exactly what he and Diana were doing, in a different way, healing and caring for the community. Diana also looked at the photo, her eyes full of pride. "She's a wonderful nurse. You two are the most vivid proof that kindness can germinate and blossom." Ethan nodded, gently squeezing the pen in his hand. He had not only built buildings. Together with Diana, he had helped rebuild his own life, his sister's life, and was continuing to build a better future for the city where he was born. Success for him was not about titles or money, but about continuing Ryan Sterling's dream every day. Ethan's success was not limited to his designs. He knew that the opportunity he received was a debt of gratitude that needed to be repaid. Together with Diana, he transformed Ryan Sterling's legacy into a living torch. They officially established the Ryan Sterling Scholarship, a fund that not only provided money, but also instilled belief. The belief that circumstances cannot dictate one's future. Many years later, one late afternoon, Ethan was driving home when he encountered a familiar sight. By the roadside, a boy about 16 years old was sitting on the ground, looking helpless beside his broken bicycle. Around him, a pile of design blueprints was scattered by the wind. Ethan stopped his car. He didn't see a stranger. He saw a reflection of himself from many years ago. "Need some help, kid?" he asked. The boy looked up, hurriedly gathering his papers. I'm trying to bring these to submit for a design competition at the community center, but my bike broke down. It's almost the submission deadline." Ethan looked at the drawings. They were amateurish, but in every stroke he saw passion and a talent waiting to be honed. Instead of making a powerful phone call, he simply said, "Hop in. I'll give you a ride." On the way, they talked. The boy's name was Kevin Lee, and he dreamed of becoming an architect who could build sturdy homes for working-class families. Ethan didn't make any grand promises. He just listened, shared his own story, and when they arrived at the community center just in time, he handed Kevin his business card. "Here's my card," Ethan said. "These drawings have a lot of soul. But to win a scholarship, you'll need more than that. Give me a call. I can show you a few things." Kevin didn't receive an immediate miracle. He wasn't given a special pass. Instead, he received something more valuable, a mentor. For the next year, under Ethan's guidance, Kevin learned, refined his skills, and built an impressive portfolio. He applied for the Ryan Sterling Scholarship like any other student, and he earned it on his own merit. The circle of kindness had not merely repeated, it had grown. Ethan had not just given Kevin an opportunity, he had given him the tools to seize that opportunity himself. And as he watched Kevin receive his award, gripping the RS pen in his pocket, He knew that Ryan's legacy would never end. It had just begun, once again, with a small act of kindness on the road.